Hello, everyone. It's Aneta Itchak here. Hope you are having a good day. Today, I wanted to come in and do a Facebook Live with a little training called 3 Reasons Why Trauma-Informed Training Should Not Be an Add-on. And this is something that I feel very, very passionate about, something that comes up for me again and again in so many conversations with yoga teachers and wellness practitioners and coaches. And for me, it's very obvious that trauma-informed approach, trauma-informed training should not be an add-on. And there are many reasons for it, more than just 3 reasons, but there are 3 main reasons why I believe that, and I wanted to share that with you today. So the first reason that really stands out for me is that if you work with people, if you work with students and clients, whether it's one-to-one work or whether it is a group work, some kind of group offering group sessions, then you are working with the wholeness of your clients and your students. Sometimes we think about trauma, and I've come across that so many times. We think about trauma at this very acute stage, this very acute level where somebody is diagnosed with PTSD or CPTSD, so complex post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder, and they are experiencing severe symptoms like flashes, nightmares, being triggered and going into very high level of physiological activation without being able to control it. But actually the reality is that when we talk about PTSD, we're only talking about 2.5–3% of population. That's a small percentage. And yes, definitely, somebody who has been diagnosed with PTSD or CPTSD needs support, specialized support. But if we move away from just thinking about trauma, that it is to do with PTSD, then what we suddenly realize is that actually the research shows that over 90% of our population has experienced traumatic events. They might not necessarily be diagnosed with PTSD, that might not meet criteria, or they might never seek support. But because of those traumatic events, they are still in a place where they, some are their somatic experience, they psyche, so the way that they think about themselves, about the possibilities and opportunities and who they are, and their physiology, all 3 are still really impacted by those traumatic events. And so, that's a huge percentage. If you think about 2.5–3% and 90% plus, there is a big difference there. It also means that if you are working with clients and students, whether in one-to-one or in group sessions, you will be working with people who have gone through those traumatic events and those traumatic events are still showing up in their physiology, their somatic experience, and their psyche. And so for me, and the last 2 years, the last 3 years have been really challenging for all of us. And with the pandemic, there is a talk about mental health crisis. There's so much stuff happening within our communities. Here in UK, there are lots of strikes. The teachers are on strikes. The rail workers are on strikes. The nurses. There is so much happening in here. There is a cost of living crisis happening. People who have been really struggling are struggling more. I'm not saying everybody is struggling, but everybody is impacted, or almost everybody is impacted. And so we will be responding to what's happening around us and what has been happening for the last few years, depending on our own physiology, depending on our past history, depending on our personality, depending on the ability to do inner resourcing and find inner stability and being grounded and present and really looking after ourselves, and whether we know how to self-regulate, whether we've got support around us that, you know, that helps us meet our needs and gives us that support when we need it. And so it's really important that as practitioners, as yoga teachers, as coaches, as wellness practitioners, as therapists, anybody who works with people needs to understand about nervous system, needs to understand what's going on in somebody's physiology, needs to know how to be able to read somebody's presentation and their physiology, whether they've been triggered, needs to know how to, you know, work with people. And that is the reason number 2 for me. You know, it's like you need to understand it if you work with people. And when you understand it, it really changes how you work with other people. It's so, you know, interesting. It's like I've heard somebody a while ago said to me in one of the Facebook forums that isn't all yoga good for trauma? And the short answer is no, not at all. Not at all. You know, I've been mentoring and training yoga teachers for years now, and I know that most of the yoga teacher trainings do not cover nervous system, do not cover anything about trauma. Even when we talk about stress, sometimes those trainings don't go into trauma. They kind of stay on a different level. And so really to be able to support others effectively in a safe way, trauma-informed training and somatic training is a must. It's not just, for me, it's not just trauma-informed, but also somatic. To really go into embodiment, into somatic compassionate practices, into nervous system regulation, into practices like focusing, embodied listening, so working with parts and felt senses, into IFS, so internal family systems, and an ongoing learning. Like you might have seen, I have just signed up for another training, which is trauma-informed somatic coach and trauma-informed narcissistic abuse coach. Even though I have got over 22 years experience of working with trauma, with individuals, with families, with trauma, mental health, with substance misuse, with domestic violence, with child protection, I have learned for the last 22 years so much about it. You know, it's the training in social care is always really amazing because it teaches you so much. And in addition to that, my yoga teacher training and yoga therapy, you know, I've done and coaching and body work and some, you know, embodiment coach. There's so much, and trauma-informed trainings. There is so much. And yet I decided to train, you know, to do another training, to take my understanding and my skills a level higher. And, you know, it's an ongoing training, ongoing learning, because our understanding of trauma keeps changing. And so when we learn, you know, when we learn about trauma, when we understand the nervous system regulation, when we understand co-regulation, when we understand polyvagal theory, when we understand somatic practices, when we understand how to self-regulate, how to help somebody regulate, when we understand this trauma-informed somatic approach, we work with our clients in a different way. So some of the very practical things is, we use different language. We use trauma-informed and somatic and sensitive language. It is a different language. It is approaching it differently. We work in line of really understanding that safety is number one, and that healing and positive transformation and co-regulation happens through positive, healthy relationships. So it's all about, as practitioners, it's all about having very clear, compassionate boundaries. It's about providing, using the language, whether it's written form or spoken form, whether we are communicating with others, using that trauma-informed language. It is also about approaching it in a different way, understanding what we can do and what we can't do, where there is a need for, much more specialized support, maybe some mental health professionals that need to step in to support our students and our clients. There is, signposting, understanding that I can't do everything. Yes, I have got 22 years experience and I've worked with thousands of clients in social care, in crisis center, in the community, in my own coaching practice, in my yoga teaching practice. But I am quite clear about how I work with people and who I work with, and then I am able to refer people on to other professionals to meet their needs in a more effective way. The other thing in here is, it changes how we work, not just in the way that we work with our clients and our students. So I also mentor yoga teachers and coach yoga teachers and coaches and wellness professionals in building their heart-centered businesses. And I bring this understanding into how I coach those professionals in building their own heart-centered businesses. This understanding of trauma-informed approach, understanding of nervous system regulation, bringing compassionate somatic approaches and practices. It's a game changer completely. It's completely changed my business. It's completely changed how I bring it to everything, basically. It's completely changed everything for me. And so I share it with others, whether it's in our one-year program called Yoga Business Mandala group coaching and mentoring program, which is for 1 year, to really offer for 1 year this stable, consistent container for yoga teachers and coaches and wellness professionals to really transform their business and transform who they are in the process as well. Because it's not just about the business. As self-employed person, whether part-time or full-time, your business is you. You're not a big corporation and a CEO where you've got lots of workers. You are your business. And so you bring the wholeness of yourself. So this nervous system piece and trauma-informed approach piece to business is complete game changer. I've worked with many coaches over the last 10 years, and I know some of the coaches are really great, and the best ones are who really understand the nervous system, understand trauma-informed approach, who have trained in it. And the ones who haven't, even though they're really good coaches and they get really good results, it didn't work for me because, they might have come from cold calling and talking about, it's just a numbers game. And it's just, you just send lots of DMs and message lots of people. And then at some point, somebody gets back to you and then you've got a client. It doesn't work for me at all. I just cannot connect with it. When you work in trauma-informed approach, you understand that it's all about safe, healthy, boundaried relationships. And so you build those relationships, one relationship at a time. And slowly but surely you build your business. It's a very safe, organic, gradual way. I've also seen many coaches who had really went for it, had really great launches into 6 figures and then crashed completely because it was so not aligned with the nervous system regulation. Yes, they did that. And then they paid the price with their own health. They hit the burnout, they couldn't manage it and had a crash or had a burnout. And so we don't want to do that. We want to be much more conscientious. And so when we bring that trauma-informed and nervous system regulation approach, we understand that there is another way. You can build your business, you can work with your clients in a different way, in a trauma-informed way, and you can build your business in exactly the same way that really supports you, that really nourishes you as a practitioner. And then there is one last thing when it comes down to why I believe trauma-informed training should not be an add-on. And that is that when we learn about nervous system, when we learn about trauma, when we learn polyvagal theory, when we learn about how it all works, it helps us also understand what's going on for us. And it starts our own deeper healing process. So this is the feedback that I get the most from our trauma-informed trainings. I hear that again and again and again from yoga teachers and coaches, that it really allowed them to connect with their own experience and understand their own experience, and that it really helped them practice daily, like somatic self-compassion, trauma-informed somatic self-compassion, and other practices, somatic practices for nervous system regulation, for inner resourcing. And I hear that so much that it just changed. It's not only changed how they work with others, but how they approach their own self-care, their own practices, the way that they do everything, how it impacts their relationships, how it impacts the choices that they make, and how it impacts how they feel about themselves and their life. And, a lot of practitioners say, oh, something clicked, or I had a big insight, or I suddenly got it, why I'm feeling like this, or I understand, when I get triggered and I go through mobilization, fight and flight into the shutdown or our freeze. We start seeing patterns. When we understand, when we learn this stuff, we've got points of reference. And we start understanding, oh, that's how it works. Oh, okay, that's how it works. And I do this. When that happens, I do this. And then you realize, okay, so maybe when that happens and I do this, maybe I could try to do something different. And so profound healing and transformation takes place, because ultimately we cannot change what we are not aware of. It always starts with awareness. It starts with a different understanding of something. This is where the theories and models are so useful. It gives us a different point of view on something. And then when we have that, then we can choose differently. We can say, oh, okay, so that person said this and that triggered me and I reacted like this. Do I want to continue doing it or not? If I don't, well, maybe I need to look at something else. So maybe I need to name it and say something to them. Maybe I need to reduce the amount of exposure around being with them. Maybe I need to just block them if it is online. As I said, you cannot change what you are not aware of. And learning about trauma-informed approach, learning about nervous system regulation and co-regulation, it really allows us to understand it in a different way. And it cannot happen any other way. It changes us, helps us heal, helps us go through that inner deep transformation on a very deep somatic cellular level. That's different from this kind of, oh, yes, I know I should be doing this. I do something different every time. Oh, yes, I know that makes sense. Yes, that's a good practice, but I don't practice it. Oh, yes, I want to do something different, but I always do the same thing. When we stay on this mind level, just the knowledge level, yes, it's good, but the change doesn't happen often. What we need to do is go a level deeper into practicing somatic practices. Like, you can understand what is the nervous system regulation from a theoretical knowledge point of view, but that doesn't mean you experience it within your somatic experience, within your knowing how exactly it feels. You then have to start practicing somatic practices in order to really get the sense of it. Oh, that's how it feels when I move more towards self-regulation, more towards stability, more towards feeling grounded and present and safe, and coming from that embodied presence space when I'm compassionate and I'm engaging with you and I'm present. And oh, that's how it feels when I start moving more towards this regulation, where I get triggered, when I move from embodied presence into reactive parts, reacting, when I start feeling disconnected, or maybe when I go into shutdown because it's too much and it triggered off some memories within my somatic experience, and I just go straight in there. So we need those points of reference, and it has to be felt experience. It cannot stay on the mind level only. And what's important in here as well is that it takes time. It takes time. There is no shortcut for it. Yes, we live in a society that promises us quick fix, quick fix, quick fix. And there is no shortcut. For healing, for the deeper sense of connection, for changing in a safe, baby steps way, in a way that we can integrate the change. Because yes, you can have practices that are really big, really, very cathartic, but they're useless if you cannot integrate it. If you cannot integrate it within your whole experience, somatic experience, the wholeness of you. And so those three things, those 3 points that I said, 3 reasons why trauma-informed training should not be an add-on. Because if you work, number one is because if you work with people, you need to understand how the nervous system works. You need to understand trauma, and you need to understand trauma-informed approach. Number 2 is that when we train in trauma-informed somatic approaches, it changes how we work. We use a different language. We build different relationships with our students and our clients. And number 3 is because when you train in trauma-informed somatic approach, it helps you understand what's going on for you. And therefore, it helps you heal on a different level, on a deeper level. I hope that makes sense. I'd love to hear what you think about this. And let's continue having those conversations. And if you are interested in training in trauma-informed somatic approach, Our next training, called 160-hour trauma-informed somatic teacher and coach for women, specifically for women, working with women, is starting 15th of April. And I will be sharing more information about it. It's absolutely amazing training running over 9 months, plus additional few months of support after that. And I'm bringing everything into it. The last 22 years of my experience of working with clients, working in trauma-informed approach, working with trauma, working with and supporting women, coaching, somatic movement. There's so much in there. I will be sharing more information about it as we move on. And whatever you decide to do, whoever you decide to train with, I would really encourage you to find a trauma-informed somatic training that really resonates with you, for the benefit not just of your students and your clients, but your own and your loved ones. As always, let me know what you think, and take care for now.